Ad America TV. My name is Aninda, one of the guests here in Ad America. It's really nice to see you all. We hope you're all doing well and staying safe at home. For those of you who just joined us for the first time, Ad America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center, and our mission is to provide a space for young Indonesians to learn more about the United States. We have moved temporarily to a digital platform so you can enjoy our events from the comfort of your own home. On this event, we'll be having Introduction to the GRE, Part 1 out of 6. But before we begin, let's break the ice with a little trivia. The question for today is, true or false, machine learning and AI are having a growing impact in optimizing student services and support during the pandemic? You can start typing your answer on our social media because in the end of the event, we'll do a live shout-out for those of you who can guess the answer correctly. Other than that, don't forget to take a selfie and tag Ad America Instagram account. Without further ado, let's introduce our moderator for today, Kasantika Salim, our advisor from Education USA. Time is yours.
Hi everyone, thank you so much Aninda. Good morning everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And we are back to the GRE again. If you guys remember, we had this in the past, but it was more elaborated than this one. So this one is just introduction to the GRE. It is 6 sessions instead of 12 in the past. And what I want to highlight here is that we will have 3 verbal sessions and 3 quantitative sessions. So the order will be 3 verbal and 3 quants later. So if you guys go to our website and you guys have registered for all 6 sessions, you will realize the difference in the facilitator. So for verbal, we will have Christine that I will call later. And for quant, we will have Bumel. So it is the same as last time if you are not new here. But if you're new, don't worry, I will fill you in for what Education USA is all about and how you can check our events. And I will also call Christine when I finish, so you guys can stay tuned. If you guys are not new here, I think I see a lot of familiar names. You guys can prepare some notes and pen or whatever you guys need to for note taking, because I think you will need that. And there's no handout for now. If there is any handout, it will be on the website on the event page that you guys register for this event. Okay, so without further ado, I will try to share my screen for the Education USA introduction. If you guys are new here, I want to let you know that Education USA is located everywhere in this world. So we are a U.S. Department of State network over 400 international student advising center in more than 170 countries. And our job is to promote U.S. higher education to students around the world by offering accurate, comprehensive, and current information. So if you have any questions or you need any tips or just someone to talk to on your plans to go to the States, you have come to the right place. All right. And we have 8 centers and should be 10 advisors in total in Indonesia alone. And I'm going to, list them down very quickly to you. And if you realize we have 2 centers that are temporarily closed, so we are only currently the operating centers are only 6, and so the advisors also 6 here. All right. So, but I still put it 8 and 10 just because that's the number that we should be having. So yeah, we have 2 in Jakarta, 1 in the U.S. Embassy, and 1 here in Ad America. In the U.S. Embassy, there's Iqbal, and here in Ad America, there's me. And next, we move to Surabaya. We have 1 active center in Universitas Erlangga Unair. We have Mbak Ambar there. And moving to Malang, we are in Universitas Muhammadiyah. We have Mas Zaki there. And in Makassar, we are in Universitas Fajar. We have Cendani there. And last but not least, we are also located in Banda Aceh in Universitas Islam Negeri UIN Araniri with Lilis. All right, so if you are in Indonesia and you are looking for the closest center, even if you're not in the same city, you can just find the closest center that you want to seek assistance from, okay? So I will tell you more on how you can find the contact later at the end of this presentation. All right, so if you're new, you probably wonder what Education USA can do for you. So these are the 5 steps. I will go through them really quickly. You don't have to come for advising session since the step 1. You can just come to us for the step 3, or maybe even after you got accepted, which is the step 4, okay? So the first one is researching your option. In this part, you probably need to know what interests that you have on what kind of program and what kind of university that interests you. So here the basics is you need to know whether you are going for S1, S2, or S3, and then what kind of major or concentration that you want, and start narrowing down your list of universities to apply to. And step 2 is finance your studies. This is when you have to decide if you need scholarship, if you're hunting for scholarship, if you need any strategy for your scholarship, for your funding options, okay? And we will be able to give you information, but you will be the one who still apply for your own scholarship and hunt your scholarship. The most common one is LPDP and Fulbright in Indonesia, so you can check those out. And the step 3 is completing your application. This is the most highly requested service from Education USA, especially in America, is that you can ask for essay review, statement of purpose or personal essay, personal statement, CV or resume, and other stuff that is needed by your application. GRE is included in that, okay? So we are basically in step 3 right now. And then the 4th one is when you got accepted to any US universities, you will have to apply for a student visa, right? We will provide you with a step-by-step, so it will not look that scary. Lastly, it is a pre-departure orientation. It is once a year event. So we invite everybody who is going to the States this year, so like for the fall intake. But if you have not got accepted, or you just started to, grow your interest, you are still free to come in to just take a look what is available for you if you got accepted and you are about to go to the States, all right? And that's it from us. And okay, I think I forgot to mention the most important part. Everything is free, so you don't have to pay for anything. Vina always says that this is too good to be true, but it is true because we are the official source. So yeah, you don't have to pay anything, okay? So this is how to book an advising session. You can just go to this link, calendly.com/educationusa@America. This is specific for the Education USA at America Center. We also have Calendly for the rest of the centers. It is very easy, calendly.com/educationusa Indonesia. So you just need to replace the N here, right? But for at America specific, if you cannot find any time slot, you can come the next day because it will automatically regenerate it plus 14 days ahead, okay? Why I said that you probably cannot find any time slot, because this is the most crowded time of the year, and we have limited time, of course, with so many people coming into us, okay? So be patient, and we appreciate that so much, all right? Okay, if you only have like quick questions, or you try to have appointment but maybe you couldn't find any suitable time, you can try to email us here, jakarta.atamerica@educationusa.org. Okay, so let's talk about this introduction to the GRE. As you can see, it will be on every Saturday from 11 until 1. And it will be from today and 13 November and 20th. And then we don't have any on the 27th. Please note that. And then we start again on the quant from December 4th and then 11 and 18. Okay, so we have 1 week break kind of on the end of November. And then if you guys are looking forward or trying to get a chance of winning the voucher, this is the terms and condition that you will find on Ad America website on the event page as well. So I'm just going to clarify here that you have to tick all of the boxes here. You have to be an undergraduate student, S1 graduate, or a working professional who is planning to apply for graduate programs, which is S2 atau S3. And then you are committed to be present to at least 4 out of 6 sessions. Jadi kalau kamu mau absen hanya bisa 2. And you participate for a minimum of 90 minutes in each of the Zoom session attended. This means you join at least 4 of the sessions, and each of the session that you attend, you have to stay or study here for at least 90 minutes because the whole program is 2 hours event and 90 minutes is 1.5 hours. So that is very doable, okay? Last one is you successfully submit a US study plan with a brief statement of purpose in this form, bit.do/adamericagre, okay? The deadline is by 9 p.m. Jakarta time on 18th December 2021. So it is on the last GRE session, but it's on the evening, okay? You don't have to submit them now. You can just try your best to attend at least 4 out of 6 sessions, and each of them is a minimum of 90 minutes attendance, okay? And multiple form submission under the same name will not be considered, just because to make it fair for everyone, okay? All right, so you can check our upcoming events here, educationusa.state.gov, or visit atamerica.or.id/educationusa. So earlier in the slides, I mentioned that you can try to reach out to other centers of Education USA in Indonesia, and how you can do that is by going to the website here, educationusa.state.gov, and find an advising center there. Okay, I think that's enough from my end, and I'm going to call our facilitator for verbal sessions, Christine. Hello.
Hello, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Christine. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank
Thanks
you
a lot,
so much
Santika.
for making this happen. And okay, the floor is yours, Christine.
Okay, awesome. Thanks a lot. So I have a quick question actually for you, Santika. Can they unmute and talk?
So you just need to call their name on here during the live and give us a few seconds to unmute them.
Okay.
And yeah, we will
So
help.
I might
We will help with the
randomly.
unmute, and if they want to turn on their video, they can. If not, then no pressure as well.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
great. Thanks a lot, Santika, for the clarification. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I was so happy to see you participating, talking about the sound quality, right? Because you were going back and forth to talk about the fact that you cannot hear well. Can you hear me well?
Yes,
Can you hear me
Christine,
well?
it's perfect
Okay.
here.
So I hope you will participate as much with the actual session as you did when we were talking about the sound check, right? So please do that. I'm gonna share screen. I think it's the right one. So we don't have a lot of time. I'll do my best here. We have about an hour and a half, and I would like you to talk. So please, if I call on you randomly, help me out here. Don't be shy. You don't have to turn on your video, but please participate, okay? So we have 3 sessions of GRE verbal, as Santika had told you. And this is slightly different from what we did before because we had 6. So I broke it down into talking about the things that I think pose the biggest difficulty for everyone. So in the first session today, we are just talking about a certain way of reading. I will explain how, because I think that the GRE verbal is basically a test of how well you know how to read in an academic way. So if you can break that down and you get familiar with the expectations of reading in a certain way, then the GRE verbal will be a lot simpler for you, right? And then in the second week, we are going to talk about reading comprehension, which is everyone's favorite section of the GRE. Is that right? And then in the last section, we're going to talk about writing. There is a continuity here, though, because if you know how to read well, then the last section on writing will come a lot more easily for you, right? So what is the GRE verbal? Why does it exist? What is it testing you on? It's not really testing you on memorizing a lot of flashcards. It's testing you on your ability to understand vocabulary in context, right? So this is the concept that you need not know every single word in the passages that you come across. But if you know how to read well, you should be able to guess at the meaning of words in context. And then something I would like to emphasize again and again is that it is really testing your skill in knowing how to read in a particular way. This might be similar to how you read daily, or it could be significantly different to how we read daily. So I'll break that down, and then analytical writing and executive reasoning. So if we go into a little bit more details, what are you being tested on when you are going through the GRE verbal? You are being tested on being able to identify an author's assumptions or perspective within a pretty short period of time. So I think you should do exercises in as many, you should get your GRE books and try to go through as many passages as you can, because you will notice a certain pattern, right? In these passages, they are written in a certain way. And once you become more familiar with the style of academic writing that you see in these passages, it could help you identify the author's assumptions and perspectives more easily. The other thing is you want to be tested on understanding the structure of a text. So in any piece of newspaper writing or in any piece of writing, there is a certain structure that texts follow. And partly when you're being tested on reading quickly, you are being tested on your ability to understand the structure, meaning like the plot line of a certain passage in a short period of time. I see chats. And then obviously understand the relationships between concepts in a text and break down the passage, which may contain a lot of fancy words and concepts that you don't understand, and it will intimidate you. But the point is that you want to get over that as much as you can. Sorry, if you're talking. Santika, I think I will silence the box, and then you can let me know when there are questions. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, sure, Christine.
Excellent. So if that is a lot of things to remember, is there a shortcut skill, right? Let's get back to this. Is there a shortcut skill that can help you know how to read in a way that you're expected to read? But before I go there, let's think about this. I think a lot of people feel a sense of resentment, or like, I don't know, a sense of like, why do I have to go through the GRE verbal? I'm going to grad school for petroleum engineering or something. Why do I have to go through the verbal? I think actually reading is a very important skill, right? It's not something you just do when you are a bookworm and you like to read, etc. It's actually something you do in daily life. And the concept of grad school, what will you do in grad school? In grad school, obviously, in any discipline, whether you're going for grad school in petroleum engineering or you're going to grad school by getting an MBA, you will be asked to insert yourself into a particular field and contribute in that field. I don't know if you agree. Do you agree? That is the concept of higher learning, right? Like, you want to study something. As an undergrad, you absorb everything that is quite on a general level about that topic, and then you go to grad school. The expectation there is that you will survey the landscape of what has been written on that particular subject that you're specializing in, and you will be able to master what has been said in that discourse well enough and participate, contribute your point of view, but not out of nowhere. You're contributing your point of view after you know what has been said on that subject. Do you agree? And this is why it takes reading, right? Because if you don't have strong academic reading skills, you are not going to be able to have the, you will not have the skills, right, needed to break down what has been said on a particular topic and to insert your own point of view in there. I don't know if this makes sense to you. Please participate. Say it doesn't make sense or makes sense, because I'm looking at the computer screen, so it'll be great if you can continue complaining about the sound or about me not making sense through the chat. Thank you so much. Oh, that was just Santika. Of course, it makes sense to Santika. Thank you, Fifi. Okay. So, as I was saying, grad school, the GRE verbal, there is a line of continuity. The reason that the GRE verbal tests you on certain skills is because those are the skills that you will need when you go to grad school, which are the skills of surveying the critical landscape on a particular subject and being able to know what you want to say about it when you have already understood what other people have said, about a certain topic. Okay, so when we are in, I don't know, when we are in regular life, like it's a weekend tonight, right? It's a weekend, it's Saturday night. If you go out with your friends tonight and you discuss a certain topic like vaccination, COVID vaccination, do you have to be well informed before you give a certain opinion? Like you might give an opinion like, I don't want to get a COVID shot or something like that. Do you need to be well informed? You don't, right? Correct? If we are talking to our friends, like tonight you go out to a cafe, hopefully, with mask on, and then you discuss a certain topic, you can say anything you want, correct? You can give your opinion and you can say, no, I really don't know if vaccinations are safe or not. If you want to say that, I don't agree with that point of view, by the way, you can. This is not how it works, right? When you are in an academic landscape. Yes? In an academic landscape, you are pretty much not allowed to be so sure about your opinion without having the data to back it up through research, okay? So this is a difference between, I don't know, everyday real life and academic life or grad school or grad study. In real life, you can say anything you want. You can have an opinion. You can assert it in a very strong manner, like GRE verbal sucks. That's fine. In an academic setting, you have to be so well modulated, right? You have to know point of view A, point of view B, point of view C. A, B, and C, they have said certain things about topic X. So, because I understand what A, B, and C have said about topic X, here is my own contribution about topic X. Does it make sense? It's not as free as talking in real life. So the GRE verbal is the skill of understanding what A, B, and C have said about topic X, and then formulating your own opinion based on your interpretation of what they have said. Okay? All right, I'll assume you agree. So is there a shortcut skill here? The shortcut skill is called close reading, which this is a favorite joke of mine. You have close read in daily life, like when you've gone on a job interview, and then you interview with someone, they write you an email and they say like, Rahmat, I really enjoyed meeting you last week. I'll be in touch. Maybe Rahmat, if he really wants the job, he will like read the email again and again and be like, oh, did I do really well? It seems like she said, I really enjoyed. She didn't just say I enjoyed meeting you. She said, I really enjoyed, so maybe I stood a good chance. Or you get a text message from your friend and you're trying to analyze, is she in a bad mood? By reading her text messages, I'm saying that the way we read closely, it already happens in daily life, correct? But with the GRE verbal, you want to go a little closer. All right. So one problem with the GRE verbal is that a lot of the passages are taken from sources discussing pretty obscure topic that you have no interest in, right? And you will be intimidated. You will look at it and you'll be like, I do not understand what are expressive paintings. I give up. I'm intimidated. I don't understand. What are expressive paintings? So here is a sentence. Let's look at it together so that I can drink a little coffee. Can I ask Gifrina to read this sentence? Maybe Gifrina Rahma. Just looking at the chat here. Maybe Santika can unmute Gifrina Rahma. Is it okay to help me read just this sentence?
Sorry, can you repeat the name, Christine?
Gifrina Rahma.
Let me find. Oh, Gifrina Rahma. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to unmute Gifrina, or she's already.
So here's somebody else's voice.
Oh,
Hello?
there you go.
Hello.
Hi, Gifrina.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for helping me read.
Okay, but I'm so sorry, I cannot open my video. Is it okay?
Yeah, it's totally fine. Don't
Totally
worry.
fine.
I would post my video too if I could, but I have no choice.
Thank you. So, okay, I'm going to read the sentence, right?
Okay, excellent.
Okay. One link between the immediately appealing, expressive paintings that are often the most popular museum attractions and the brainy constructivist school of art pioneered in the early 20th century is the notion of gesture as an expressive tool.
Thank you so much. You did great. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Nice to meet you here.
Nice to meet you too. I might ask any of you to read as well. Okay, so she read this sentence. What do you think? What do you think about this sentence? You do not like it. Am I correct? You will look at it and be intimidated. Yes. I mean, I would, and it's partly because if you look at it at a glance, and for the GRE verbal, obviously you don't have a lot of time to take your own sweet time reading everything. That's partly the challenge. So the more you get used to the types of passages you find and And the more you get used to breaking down the structure of a text, the easier this becomes. So we have this sentence. I wonder if anyone can give me some feedback on what they think about it. Maybe I'm just going to Fifi. I don't know what is Fifi's last name. Do you want to tell me what you think about this sentence? Fifi is perhaps Santika can unmute Fifi. Or
Right. Working on it.
Hi.
There you go.
What do you think about this sentence, Fifi?
Oh, one link between the image and distribution of gesture as an expressive tool. Actually, I don't get it. What is it about, Ma? I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Um,
Do you think that it's difficult partly because we don't understand a lot of the words or concepts in the sentence?
yeah, yes,
Correct.
I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's like me, if I were reading like a passage on petroleum engineering, I would probably be quickly intimidated because I don't understand petroleum engineering, right? But here is a skill, correct? Every sentence contains a story, okay? Every sentence contains a story. So if we go back to like SD kelas 4 waktu kita baru belajar tentang grammar. So in always forms like the construct of the sentence. If we think about this, any sentence that you see can be broken down into simpler parts, okay? Any sentence that you see can be broken down into simpler parts. The trick here is to understand the story in the sentence without getting too worried about the details. So understand the story in a sentence without getting too worried about the details. So that means if you see some words that you don't know, like the word expressive in expressive paintings, the word constructivist in constructivist school of art, those are what? Those are details, correct? But there is a story to the sentence beyond the details that you have to break down. So let's see, right? If we break it down a little bit, we see that the key word here is that it's talking about one link, correct? So it's talking about one link between thing A and thing B, and then it's saying it's the notion of gesture as an expressive tool. If we look at the sentence again, like without me breaking it down, sorry, where was I? If we look at the sentence previously, it was saying that one link between the immediately appealing expressive paintings that are often the most popular museum attractions and the brainy constructivist school of art pioneered in the early 20th century is the notion of gesture as an expressive tool. Sometimes reading out loud in your mind silently can actually help because the sentence seems confusing, but we actually know that it's talking about a link between one thing and another, correct? Correct? Because the main phrase here is one link, and then it tells you one link between whatever it is, immediately appealing expressive paintings, and another thing, whatever it is, you don't need to care. The second thing that it's talking about is brainy constructivist school of art, blah blah blah, pioneered in the early 20th century. Try to not get intimidated by the details in a sentence and break down the story of that sentence, right? If we break down the story in this sentence, it's talking about one link between whatever it is, A and B. And that link is what? That link is the notion of gesture as an expressive tool, correct? So you will often come across sentences like this, and it's really important to quickly pick up on what the key story of that sentence is. In this case, the story being told is that ada koneksi antara thing A and thing B, and that koneksi is something they're saying is the notion of gesture as an expressive tool. That's good enough. Correct. The sentences need more breakdown to build connection. So what I'm trying to say is that in my own case, it helps me a lot to spend a very long time reading the opening passage of a GRE RC passage, opening paragraph, and then I go faster. Because when you first start, you are in a jungle. right? You look at a passage, you have never been there before, you're trying to orient yourself. It's kind of important to kind of take your time breaking down a couple of sentences at the beginning. Once you break down that sentence, it's kind of like having a torchlight. Oh, I see I'm in the jungle, but I see a Starbucks like 500 meters away, and then you will orient yourself. And one way you can orient yourself is by practicing breaking down complex sentences where you put to the side the details and just try to understand the plot, the story in the sentence. Anyway, so there are three types of questions in the GRE verbal. One is sentence completion, one is sentence equivalence, and the last one is my favorite and yours too, reading comprehension. Again, this is usually the difficult thing for most people. So we're going to spend 1.5 sessions out of 3 on just RC. But let's start with something simple, sentence completion, just as an example. Andi Afif Wicaksono, want to read this in order to define downloading? And let's just take a guess. You can use the chat to take a guess. So in this type of questions, right, what you're being asked to do is complete a sentence, and then you're given the options, 3 options per blank. So for blank A, you have the 3 options, which are contortion, leniency, probity. Blank 2, you have swindle, disabuse, deluge, and then blank 3, justifiable, unconscionable, scrupulous. So you pick one for each of them. And the trick here, of course, is once you figured out one of the blanks between 1, 2, and 3, it can help with the rest, right? Sentence completion is quite okay. So can we take a shot at this? Does somebody want to use the chat to figure out what is? Oh, I was talking to Andi Afif Wicaksono. Hello, Andi. Would you like to read this passage and take a stab at blank 1, 2, and 3?
Hello. Okay.
Hello.
I'm sorry, I can turn on my video.
It's okay.
So I will start to read the passage.
Okay.
In order to defend downloading music illegally, it's necessary to engage in a bit of ethical probity.
Go on first. Yep, go on first.
Okay. While it is true that traditional record labels disabuse their artists, demanding indefensibly large percentage of their profits, downloading a song illegally is equally justifiable because it robs both the label and the artist. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You did great. Thank you so much. Somebody had said leniency, swindle, and unconscionable, correct? Correct? Yeah. This is like one of the complex parts of the GRE verbal, right? Sometimes you have a perfectly good answer like leniency. Why isn't that the answer? Because the answer here for blank 1 is not leniency, but contortion. Contortion. Even though if we think about it as a sentence, it kind of makes more idiomatic sense, right? To say engage in a bit of ethical leniency, right? It makes sense. Lenient means like flexibility, being soft on someone, correct? Like you have a lenient teacher, you have a lenient mother or something like that. So as in like you don't keep such high moral standards, you're lenient. So it makes sense that it's leniency. In that case, why is it contortion? What does it mean? What does contortion mean? Contortion is like when you twist your body in a kind of weird way, you know, like your arm is bent to the back and your leg is raised 90 degrees or whatever, you're contorting something. Do you have any thoughts on why for blank 1, the right answer would be ethical contortion instead of ethical leniency? Because I guess if we look at the first part of the sentence, it says defend downloading music illegally, right? Defend downloading music illegally. And then the rest of the sentence says, while it is true that traditional record labels, blah, their artists, I think everyone got it right, swindle their artists, demanding indefensibly large percentages of their profits, downloading a song illegally is equally what? unconscionable, you're also right, because it robs both the label and the artist. Okay. The reason that the first blank is contortion and not leniency is because Quincy says you have to twist your thinking about the ethics of the situation, like you have to twist your perceptions. Exactly so. When you're trying to defend something, it's kind of like you have to kind of contort your logic so that you can justify, oh, it's okay to do this thing, you know? And if we weigh the two options here between contortion and leniency, do you agree that contortion is slightly more fitting with the sentence than leniency? Do you agree? Or is leniency just as good a response? Okay, Quincy says that he agrees that it should be contortion. Maybe we can unmute Quincy Clark Santika. Maybe you can share your thoughts, Quincy. Why is it not leniency though? Why is it contortion? Hello.
I just asked Quincy to unmute.
Oh, okay.
Quincy, can you unmute? Can you
He cannot unmute his mic. Is
unmute
broken.
yourself?
I think his mic is broken, Santika, so it's okay. I think he's saying that leniency would work better if the passage defended downloading music illegally. Exactly so. Correct. So if you say that it's an ethical leniency, it's kind of giving a positive spin to like downloading music illegally. Well, if you say that it's ethical contortion, there's a kind of judgment on the act of downloading music illegally. Does it make sense? I guess that's actually a very good explanation. Thanks so much, Quincy. It's like, let me give you an example if it makes sense. I'm trying to think of an example in Indonesian, but I'm limited here. Let me think for 1 second. Okay. This is a bad one, but maybe you'll get the analogy. Let's say that you see a picture of a cafe, right? And you say that it's so you say that the cafe is so stereotypically hip. Okay, so in option A you say that cafe is so stereotypically hip, and then in option B you say that cafe is so awesomely hip or something like that. In the first sentence there is a kind of attitude about the cafe, right? If you say it's stereotypically hip, what is your attitude about that cafe? You're kind of like rolling your eyes at how hip it is, correct? But in the second sentence, if you say that something is awesome, it's like very, very, it's so great and hip or something like that, then your attitude is what? Is more in agreement with the greatness of the cafe. So in this case, if we say that it's necessary to engage in a bit of ethical leniency, then we are saying that downloading music illegally is something that you could do. All you need to do is be more lenient in terms of ethics. But if you say that you have to engage in a bit of ethical contortion, as in like you have to bend yourself out of shape to justify this, then what is your attitude? Then what is the sentence's attitude towards downloading music illegally? It would be disapproving, correct? And since the rest of the sentence says, while it is true that blah, 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 still downloading music is illegal because it robs both the label and the artist. So the sentence is not approving of people downloading music illegally, correct? That's why contortion is a better answer. And this is a very short sentence, but it gives you a sense of that thing that you are being tested on that we spoke about earlier when we said that you are being tested on understanding and identifying the author's assumptions and perspective, remember? And in the sentence that I gave you, this cafe is so stereotypically hip versus this cafe is so awesome and hip. In those two sentences, can you identify my attitude about the cafe? In the first, if I say it's so stereotypically hip, I'm not really thinking it's so great. I'm kind of rolling my eyes, right? But in the second, if I say it's so awesome and great, I am thinking that cafe is great, correct? So from the words that I use, you are kind of identifying my assumptions and my perspective on a certain subject, correct? Such as we did in that sentence completion example that we saw. We do it in just a more elaborate manner when it comes to a whole reading comprehension passage. Okay, let's move on. This is a pretty difficult one. Maybe we can get somebody with an unbroken mic to read. Dinda Ganisawati Javada, wanna try with this while the colonists?
Winda.
Dinda.
Dinda.
Hello, good
Hello.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. Would you help me read this sentence, Dinda?
Yes, sure, I will try.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity,
Thank you
Christine.
as well. It's a pleasure.
While the colonists would eventually push westward, first they were in for a long, difficult winter, and the main challenge was to tank their existing resources.
Thank you so much. Do you want to? So, do you have any guesses? This is the second type of GRE verbal question, right? Where you're asked to pick two synonyms, more or less, as the answer for a blank in a sentence. So, please, by the way, read the instructions because the instructions are not the same for every question type. So, for instance, in this case, it's select the two, not one, but two answer choices that, when used to complete the sentence, fit the meaning of the sentence as a whole. So, and produce complete sentences that are alike in meaning. So, they're asking you to pick two words which are similar in their meaning, correct? And what is the story that this sentence is telling? It's in the conjunctions, right? While a group of people would eventually continue their journey, but first they were going to face a long and difficult winter. And the main challenge that they need to do was to what their existing resources. There is a story in every sentence, correct? So what's the answer in this blank if I'm gonna think just like again idiomatically? Preserve, correct? Their main challenge was to preserve their existing resources, correct? Dinda, Asantika had asked what would be your two word choices here? And what would be your two potential answers for filling in this blank? Want to take a stab at this, Dinda, since you already read the sentence?
I choose fiddle.
Paddle.
Yeah, fiddle.
Okay, so paddle is a synonym of sell. So it's usually like a word that has negative connotations, like we say he's paddling cheap goods from door to door or something like that. It's like when you're selling, but there's a sense that you're kind of like a salesman selling something not of great quality. Then you say paddling. So sell and paddle would be synonyms, right? But if we say and the main challenge was to sell their existing resources, it kind of can make sense. Like you could be facing a long winter and jualan di jalanan untuk to collect some money for the long winter. It can make sense, but it's not the most immediate answer. So Jessica Lisa Suharjo says steward and husband. Do we agree with that? Do we agree with steward and husband? We agree, but it is really very, very difficult to arrive there because neither one of those words, especially the word husband, used as a verb, is something that we hear every day, correct? Correct? We think like husband is like, oh, there's your husband coming home or something like this. But this word is being used as a verb and not a noun here, correct? So what does it mean to husband your existing resources? Anyone has access to Google definitions? Can you Google the definition of husband as a verb? To use resources economically. Exactly. Also related to the old word Shakespearean English husbandry. But anyway, so the thing is that if we don't know this, right? If we don't know this, can we take a vote as to what are the two words that you know out of these six options? What are the two words that you do know? Because you will look at this question, right? And you look at the choices and you would be like, I know what this means, I know what that means, and not the rest or something. What do we know? Sell, correct? we definitely know the word sell. Agree? Yes. What is another word that we know? Claudia, you know the word sell and steward, but you don't know the word procure. What about procure, Claudia? Can you unmute Claudia Suwardi, Santika?
Right away.
Thank you so much. We're getting so much more participation. I think it's because the sound quality was bad, so they got used to participating.
Hi, Claudia.
Thanks, Tanika and Kristen.
Hello. Okay. Yeah, Claudia, I wanted to ask. You know the word sell and steward out of these choices, is that right?
Yes.
But what about procure?
I'm not so sure. I know the word procurement,
Is
like
that
like in a company, but not very sure about the procure itself, I guess.
obviously words have roots, right? So if we
Yeah,
know
yeah.
procurement, what does it mean? Yeah.
Yeah. From what I know, it's like person who purchase things, dealing with suppliers, and yeah, all that.
Great. It's to get goods, right? To
Yeah,
get supply, so something like that.
yeah.
Obtain. Yeah, of course it is more challenging, Rabi. Yeah, it is challenging. Okay, great. So we from this we know the word sell, procure, and you know the word steward. May I ask how did you know the word steward? Is it from like memorizing flashcards or just from like normal everyday life usage?
Steward is more from stewardess.
Oh, how so? Can you explain?
Stewardess meaning like server, some kind of server.
Okay. Interesting. Like a steward, or an air steward or air stewardess,
Yeah,
like steward, right?
yeah,
Okay,
right.
interesting. So we know the word sell, we know the word procure. Does it make sense to say the main challenge was to procure their existing resources? It doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah,
Because if the resources already exist, then you are not procuring it, correct? If they did not have the word existing and the main challenge was just to procure their resources, then it makes sense, correct? But because it's existing resources, the word that we want is close to the word preserve, correct? Correct? You have to preserve your existing resources. So if we're looking for synonyms of preserve, how can we check off this list? Like how do we do that magical thing that you're asked to do in the GRE, the process of elimination, right? So if we eliminate the choices here, it cannot be sell, correct? Maybe we don't know what paddle means. Steward, okay, you already said, right, that steward is close to that job, correct? Where you are a steward of something. Okay, maybe we leave it. Append, maybe we leave it. Husband, we don't know what it means, so maybe we leave it. Procure, it's wrong, correct? So then we have 4. Anyone wants to, if you want to take a step at this, please say, let me talk in the chat, and then Santika can unmute you. Any thoughts on how we proceed from here on? How do we attack something like this? Like if we only know 2 to 3 words out of 6 options? Okay, Anwari has said something quite interesting. Anwari says that both steward and procure means manage. What is the definition of procure? I don't know that it means manage. I think it means more close to like obtaining something, right? Procure is obtains, especially with care or effort, okay? So it cannot be procure because procure means to obtain, get something you don't yet have. And here it says existing resources. So perhaps actually, even though we say that the GRE is about being able to understand vocabulary in context, I think you do need a little bit of flashcards memorization because knowing the fact that husband as a verb means something like to be economical with your means would help you a lot. And then if you cancel out all the other options, it would be husband and steward. Because it cannot be append, it cannot be procure, and sell and paddle are the same words. I'm trying to say something here which is like, for at least the sentence equivalents, I found that the flashcards, they do help, but I don't know if you agree. Like if we don't know the meaning, the less use less used definitions of some of these words, it could be difficult to arrive at the right answer here. But anyway, so does everyone agree that the answer is steward and husband? Meaning, and both words are used to talk about managing your resources economically, to manage your resources economically, and they're both verbs. Agree. This was difficult though. This is probably a little difficult than the normal sentence equivalents that you will see, so don't worry, okay? As was the first blank here, was more difficult than the normal sentence equivalents. So now we go to our favorite section, the reading comprehension, where you're doing the same thing as you did before. You're trying to do what? You're trying to understand the attitude of the passage towards a certain thing, right? So like in the downloading music illegally thing, we are understanding that that short passage here was frowning and not agreeing with downloading music illegally, correct? And we are also doing that thing where we try to understand the context of the context of the passage in order to understand a certain word within that passage. Like in this sense, we knew that the context of the passage is something like, oh, colonists face a hard winter, so their main challenge is to what? Their existing resources. Tell the story to yourself. And let's now put together those skills to attack a typical RC passage. Remember when I said at the beginning that there is a slight difference in how you read in daily life and how you read academically, correct? And how you express an opinion in daily life where you can just say whatever you want without backup, and how you express an opinion in grad school or academically, right? So we go back to this topic, right? And if you have bought like a couple of practice books, I think even if you're not conscious of it, you would know that there is a certain pattern to the types of passages that you find in a GRE by now, correct? I think that one typical pattern is, but there are always, sorry, interrupting myself for a second to address Cornelia. How if we can answer one correct answer only? Example, husband and procure, but procure is false. Do you get points if you answer just one correctly? I am tempted to say I don't think so, because it's one question. So you would be, you would score based on answering that one question. But let me get back to you on this next week, okay, Cornelia, about what happens if you choose one answer. So going back to, yeah, there will be a 0 for that question because it's marked as one question. Okay, so going back to patterns in the types of passages that you see. So the pattern in academic writing is usually author A has said blah about this topic, author B has said blah about this topic, but recently author C says blah, 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 okay? So it's usually like a comparative thing where you say on any topic, like the topic of global warming, scientists from the 60s have said blah about global warming, but by the 70s, scientists said this other different thing about global warming. In the 80s, this guy said this thing, but understand that because in grad school, you are taught to think in a complex manner. At least that is the point of education, whether or not it's successfully, achieved, right? The point of education, whether or not you achieve it in the course of getting educated in anything, is to be unsure. That is really the goal. Like if you go through school, the best thing that can happen to you at the end of school is to be unsure. Instead of knowing so little that you can be sure about any topic, the more you study a certain topic, the less sure you become, correct? So the thing is that because uncertainty or like having a well-balanced and well-modulated point of view, these are all values that are taken to be positive in grad school. So the way that you are asked to read, usually it reflects those values. Do you know what I mean? Which is by which I'm saying you're not going to find a passage that says A says this, B says this, but C is correct. That is rare. Usually it would be like A says this, B says that, C says some of both. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to be so crystal clear as in those two guys were wrong. The third guy got it right. It's usually like those two guys were partly right. The third guy says 50% of A and 50% of B. As long as you locate this pattern, it should help you. Now let's take an example of this passage as a typical instance of author A says this, author B says that, author C, both, or something like that. Who would like to volunteer to read? Tian Mai, do you want to take a stab? Tian Mai, Santika is the last person who
All
talked
right.
in the chat. If you could just start with just the first paragraph. Sorry, it's broken up. If you could read
Okay.
line 12. Yeah, okay.
Yes. I will read the whole passage, right? Okay.
Not the whole one. Not the whole passage, just till line 12, actually.
Okay, line 12. Borrowing the techniques of phylogenetic analysis from evolutionary biology, Gray and his colleagues reconstructed 4 family trees containing more than 2,000 languages.
Oh, starting from the start. I'm so sorry, Tian. I mean, starting from the very start to line 12.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I meant starting from the top of the passage up to line 12.
I see. Okay, universalism was most prominently set forward by the linguists Joseph Greenberg and Noam Chomsky. Chomsky is attempting to account for the celebrity with which children grasp the subtle grammatical rules of their native tongues, argued that the best explanation is that human brains has modules capable of generating an entire grammar on the basis of a small set of generative rules. We should therefore expect to find grammatical features shared by all human languages. Greenberg, on the other hand, painstakingly listed for the grammatical features shared by multiple languages, posting that commonalities must reflect their innate cognitive biases. Greenberg's data pays special attention to work order, using the hypothesis that some grammatical features of languages must be codependent. Chomsky's view, in return, predicts that as languages evolve and change, the grammatical features generated by the same rules should co-vary. A team led by Russell Gray, a New Zealand psychologist, recently released the results of a massive study that they claimed cast doubt on their universalist predictions, borrowing the technique of phylogenetic analysis from evolutionary biology. Gray and his colleagues reconstructed 4 family trees containing more than 2,000 languages.
Thank you so much, Tian. That was a huge chunk to read. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
May I discuss this a little bit with you? What do you think from reading this so far? What is the summary of what you read so far? Oh, he is muted. Perhaps he can be unmuted. Tian Mai, I think.
Okay, thank you. Yes. From the way I see it, I can see the debate between Joseph Greenberg and Noam Chomsky. One person, Noam Chomsky, argued that human beings have an innate grammar, universal grammar that allows them to learn any language and follow the same structure in every language. Greenberg, on the other hand, think of the grammar as, they codepend on each other. So yeah, it doesn't reflect innate cognition. It's something that we learn and then we practice and then we can understand.
Yeah, Greenberg thinks that there are cognitive biases that lends itself to commonalities, right?
Indeed, yes.
Languages. Okay. Great. That's a great summary. If what we have read so far was a movie, where does the plot twist happen? With what sentence do you see a new point of view?
I beg your pardon. I didn't hear very well. My connection is weak.
Okay, perhaps that was confusing. If we think that this passage that he has read so far, this question is for everyone, by the way, so please participate. if we think that the passage that Tian has read so far is a movie, like in a movie,
I know.
yeah, where does the plot twist happen? Like, where does it turn? Like, where is the sentence in this passage so far that introduces a plot twist?
If we take the Noam Chomsky as the subject, then the plot twist shall be the green bird on the other hand. And if we take the both linguists from the point of view of those linguists, then the borrowing the technique of phylogenetic analysis would be the plot twist.
Oh, perfect. So that's such a much better breakdown than I would have given, actually. Thank you so much, Tian. Really appreciate it. So you're
Okay,
right.
thank you, Christian.
Thank you. If we take the subject to be both Greenberg and Chomsky, then the sentence that introduces the plot twist is, where is opinion C? Opinion C is in line 9.
Yes.
A
Yes.
team led by, oh no, I forgot, I cannot. A team led by Russell Gray, a New Zealand psychologist, recently released the results of a massive study that they claim cast doubts on these universalist predictions, correct? So here's a question for you. Despite their differences, are both Greenberg and Chomsky proponents of the universalist theory of language? Do they share that in common? Are they both universalists?
Actually, I think that Noam Chomsky would be the supporter of the universalism, while I think Joseph Greenberg was more the antagonist side from the one way I see it.
Oh, okay, I see. Do we agree with Tian there? Because the first sentence says that universalism was most prominently set forward by both Greenberg and Chomsky, right? So are they not both universalists? Both are universalists. Thank you so much, Adinda Saraswati.
I misunderstand. Okay.
Yeah, so they're both universalists, but within universalism, there are differences, correct?
Indeed, yes.
There are differences. And then the plot twist is a team led by Russell Gray, a New Zealand psychologist, blah, 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 cast doubt on these universalist predictions, correct?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so this is such a typical GRE passage, right? Where you have a concept, be it universalism, be it electromagnetic dynamics or whatever it is, you have a concept, correct? And then you have different people in relation to this concept, and then you have the plot twist, like the introduction of something else. But what you have to observe is that the something else doesn't just negate the first and second guy, right? The something else usually is in continuity with the previous, with the point of views of the previous author. I'm not sure if that's right. So let's read on. Adinda, can I ask you to help? Sorry, to help continue reading, starting from borrowing the technique and until the end. This is Adinda Saraswati Rosadi.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry, where do you want me to start?
Start line 10, borrowing the technique. Yeah.
Okay. Borrowing the technique of phylogenetic analysis from evolutionary biology, Gray and his colleagues reconstructed 4 family trees containing more than 2,000 languages. They found that the code dependencies in word order change varied among families, suggesting that each family has evolved its own rules. Moreover, if codependencies were common to 2 families, there was evidence that they had separate origins within each family, thus yielding no evidence of family invariant rules. Many universalists, however, were unimpressed that languages vary widely is well known. But given that some language is spoken virtually all human beings, it would be strange if it did not reflect cognitive universals. It is the search for those universals, not the cataloging of variations, that should take priority.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Adinda.
Thank you.
Nice to hear other voices. Otherwise, we're not in the same room. It's like blah blah blah. I'm going.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Can I ask you to stick around for a second?
Sure.
Remember when we said that partly the GRE is asking you to identify the position of the writer of the passage, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Here, number 1. What are you being asked to do? Identify the author's assumptions or perspectives. So why is it difficult to identify the author's assumptions and perspectives in a piece of academic writing? It's because in academic writing, you're not talking about your own opinion. You are, but it's usually through the prism of like summarizing other people's opinions, right? That's what makes it slightly more difficult to locate the author's own position. If we look at the last sentence here, it is the search for those universals, not the cataloging of variations, that should take priority. Whose point of view is this? Is this the point of view of the universalist, or is it the point of view of the writer of this passage? If I can ask you, Adinda, for your thoughts on this.
It's the point of view of the author.
Okay, and not of the universalist. How do you know that? Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure how to explain it, but well, if you mentioned earlier that there was a pattern to every passage in the GRE, right?
Yeah.
And the way that I see it is the author presented the findings from Greenberg and Chomsky and Gray.
Yeah.
And then so it was logical to assume that at the end that the author would present their own view of the findings.
And his own view happens to coincide with the universalist?
No. Well, to some extent, yes, because the author is making a point that instead of arguing about where the variation lies, we should focus on the origin, because everyone has the innate ability to communicate, right? All human beings do, and so the author is saying that it's more important to study that innate ability than before they diverge into like the different languages and stuff.
Okay, I see. That's a good read. I'm still sticking with this question as to the point that you are asked to identify the position of an author in a piece of writing. However, in a piece of academic writing, that writing is usually expressing the writer's opinion via summaries of other people's opinions on a particular topic, which makes it more of a challenge to locate the position of the writer because he's mostly representing other people's opinions and his own is hidden somewhere in there. So if we look at line 14, line 16, sorry, starting with what Dinda had read just now. Many universalists, however, were unimpressed, correct? Many universalists were unimpressed, That language is very widely is well known. But given that some languages is spoken by virtually all human beings, it would be strange if it did not reflect cognitive universals. After the colon, that language is very is widely known, blah, blah, blah. After the colon, that whole thing is whose opinion? It's the opinion of the universalist, correct?
Yes.
Even though there were no quotation marks, correct? There were no open quotation mark, blah, blah, blah. It's still saying the opinion of the universalist. So what Adinda is saying is, however, from that to the last sentence, there is a shift from representing the opinion of the universalist to representing the opinion of the writer, correct?
Yes.
Well, I think that the last sentence is still a continuation of the writer representing the opinion of the universalist. I'm thinking that if we agree, but given that some language is spoken by all human beings, it would be strange if it did not reflect universals. If that is the opinion of the universalist, the next sentence, it is to search for those universals, not the cataloging of variations. That should take priority. It's still the opinion of the universalist. Any thoughts on this? Rabiatul, basically Gray is having different opinion with both previous universalists. Yes, correct. But what is the position of the author? Because here we have like the position of Chomsky as represented by the writer, the position of Greenberg as represented by the writer, the position of Russell Gray as represented by the writer, and the writer's position, correct? Going back to my question, whose opinion is the last sentence? Any thoughts on this? The last sentence, is it him voicing the opinion of the universalist, or is it his own opinion? Adinda has very helpfully said that in her opinion, the last sentence is the opinion of the writer, correct, Adinda? Yeah. Yes, correct. So anybody else? Anybody else? Silence. Have you gone off for lunch? I don't know. I guess it's a question of what happens in between the second to last sentence and the last sentence. Yeah. So if you have no thoughts on that, perhaps we can go to the questions. It's important to know that the passages are kind of like taken as excerpts from fuller text, right? You have textbooks or you have articles, and the GRE just kind of like cuts a certain portion and puts it in there. So if you bear that in mind, it doesn't mean that the last sentence you read in a passage is the last sentence in the complete work, which makes it more difficult sometimes to locate the opinion of the writer. Okay, so let's go to the questions and table my question to you for a second. The passage most likely uses the word borrowing to indicate what? So the word borrowing, if we remember, was here. Can you see the word borrowing? Borrowing the technique of phylogenetic analysis from evolutionary biology, Gray and his colleagues reconstructed 4 family trees containing more than 2,000 languages. Borrowing the technique of blah, blah, blah from wherever. Okay, so that's the word borrowing, and it's asking you, passage most likely uses the word borrowing to indicate that A, Gray and his colleagues produced research that was not original. B, linguistics and evolutionary biology have many features in common. C, progress in linguistics cannot be carried out through traditional methods. D, research methods common to one branch of science can prove fruitful to another. E, facts about linguistics can shed light on our understanding of evolution. D, does everyone agree? Why is Muhammad so creative to choose B? Muhammad Finsia Risiadani Aditima. B. Why B? Can we unmute Santika Muhammad Finsia Risiadani?
Sure.
Great.
Okay,
Thank
give
you.
me 1 second. What was the name again?
Muhammad Finsia
Okay.
Risiadani Aditama.
Here you go.
Hi.
Hi.
So
Sure.
you and Ruliawan are both you and Rabiatul are both disagreeing with the crowd. Tell me, why do you think B?
I may have a different opinion to Miss Rabiatul, but I think at first I thought it was B, but I think it's more to D. But yeah, but I think my own my reason in the first place was both share many features that can be applied to each other to each other methodologies. It's like you can apply those way of evolutionary biology in linguistics and so otherwise.
You're absolutely right. You just reminded me of something important actually, because a lot of the options will contain true statements, truthful statements, convincing, persuasive statements, like you said, right? You think that linguistics and evolutionary biology have many things in common. That is true, correct? I agree with you. But even though it's true, does it have anything to do with the word borrowing? Because it's not asking you which sentence is true, correct? It's asking you in particular about the word borrowing, correct? So if we look at the passage again, borrowing the technique of A, Gray and his colleagues were able to do B. That's the story in that sentence. Borrowing the technique of A bunch of people were able to do B. So is the closest thing would be D, right? Research methods common to one branch of science can prove fruitful to another. We all agree. Okay, great. This was very easy, by the way. This was the easiest level of questions that you would get in the GRE. The second one, select a sentence in the passage that provides support for the thesis of universalism. Okay, I will, here is the sentence again. Which sentence supports the thesis of universalism? Any thoughts on this? In case it was not clear, the question again was select the sentence in the passage that provides support for the thesis of universalism, provide support. So again, if the question is clear enough, sentence that provides support for the thesis of universalism, then can anyone take a stab at this? Which sentence provides the best support for the thesis of universalism? Um, okay, yeah, Tian Mai, have a go at it. It is a bit difficult to narrow it down to one sentence. Do we have guesses at least? Let's take a guess. Great, Reza Rizky Pratama. I think that's a very good choice. And line 4 would be my other guess as well, which is we should therefore expect to find grammatical features shared by all human languages, right? Okay. Here's the thing about the GRE verbal. Sometimes you have to close read, not even just the passage, but the question itself, okay? So the question was asking best support, right, for the thesis of universalism. Which one sounds more like a support? We should therefore expect to find grammatical features, but given that some language is spoken by virtually all human beings, it would be strange if it did not reflect cognitive universals. Which one is more like best support? Because remember, the question was asking that provides support, or not best support, sorry, that provides support for the thesis of universalism. I would venture with, but given that some language is spoken by virtually all human beings, okay, that would be the sentence. That would be the sentence that I think provides the best support. Okay? But why? Why would we say that many universalists, but given that some language is spoken by virtually all human beings, why would that be the sentence versus line 4, which is we should expect to find grammatical features shared by all human languages? Because I guess like line 4 is more like the thesis itself, while line 19 is more like a support for that thesis. Does it make sense? One is more like the thesis and one is more like the support for the thesis. Okay, now if we try for the last one, which of the following can be inferred from the passage? Aha. This is also like a troublesome question whenever we see inference questions, right? So which of the following can be inferred? A, the thesis of universalism can only be supported through empirical studies. Okay. B, some researchers believe that empirical research can undermine theoretical conclusions. C, grammatical features in all languages co-vary. D, there is no evidence of the existence of family invariant rules. E in universalism is the only way to explain the speed at which children acquire language. Tian, B. Okay, why B, Tian? Maybe we can unmute Tian Mike. Do we all agree with B? Let's take a vote, guys. Make use of the Zoom group chat.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
From the way. Okay. Actually, I also use several crossing rules. For example, the D and the E option, it seems a little biased. So yeah, I think it would be the first thing I would cross out. Also, that includes A as well. So it will go with B and C. And about the C, I can see that there are several ideas related to empirical research in the passage. Therefore, I choose B.
Yeah. Therefore, B. This is again an excellent breakdown because do you guys hear what he said? He said something that is extremely important, that D and E, they feel extremely biased. And remember, I told you that the actual goal of education, whether or not we achieve it, is that you are unsure. That will prove that you have succeeded, like when you know so much that instead of being able to say, I know that, and the answer is that, instead you know so much that you are unsure, less certain, and able to form very well modulated opinions, right? And I told you that's the value of, I don't know, grad school in general. I mean, and the fact is that given that any sentences that sounds labai would be wrong. So what he was saying was that D and E, it sounds a little bit, how do you, in Indonesian it's lebay, right? So maybe it is D and E sounds biased. Let me ask if you agree here. Why does it sound biased? If I can ask Imral Emaka, if you could unmute Imral. Santika? Why do options D and E, why do they sound kind of biased or lebay? Hi Imral.
Hi. Because universalism is the only way to explain the speed at which children acquire knowledge. Because there were some disagreements, and this might not be the only theory to explain the
Excellent.
explain why children.
Very good, because there were a couple of opinions being reflected in the passage. So when it says universalism is the only way, you should know that that is not the answer, correct? Correct? Yeah, because the whole point of the passages are usually that there is no one only opinion. There are a few opinions on a topic. They all have various things which are right, various things which are limited, correct? So when you see an answer option that says XYZ is the only way to explain blah, it's usually incorrect, correct? What about D? What is wrong with D? Why does D sound biased? There is no evidence.
Because the passage did show that there are some evidence of the existence of family invariant rules.
Very good. What about A? A is falling into the E trap also, right?
Yeah. The thesis of universalism. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. So I think Tian was correct that it would be between B and C, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. And which one sounds like less absolutist? Do you know the word absolutist, by the way? Do you know the word absolutist?
Yeah.
What does it mean, absolutist?
Absolute is like someone thinks purely, someone looks for the purest of all.
Yeah, someone who has like an absolute opinion that you're very certain of. A purist about like a certain set of opinions is an absolutist. Where your opinion is something that you're 100% convinced by, and you are not going to err from that particular opinion that you hold. in that sense, you're being an absolutist. And if we
I guess C seems like the answer. Also,
C? Did you say C?
it seems like a good choice. I'm not sure.
But which one sounds less absolutist? If we read B, some researchers believe blah blah blah. If we read C, grammatical features in all languages co-vary. Which one is less absolutist? Which one seems like a better modulated opinion?
B.
Okay, and B is the answer. B is the answer.
Okay.
Anwari Mutakin, B is less absolutist. Also, grammatical features in all languages co-vary. Wasn't that like one guy's opinion? Wasn't that Greenberg's opinion?
Yeah.
Correct?
Line of reference.
What? Was that Greenberg's opinion, by the way? Oh, wait.
No, it was Greensburg.
It was whose?
Greensburg.
Yeah.
Line 6, I guess.
Line 6. Line 6, right? That Greenberg's data paid special attention to word order, yielding the hypothesis that some grammatical features of languages must be codependent. Is that the sentence you meant, Imral?
Yeah, is it?
All languages co-vary. Yeah, Chomsky's view in turn predicts that as languages evolve and change, the grammatical features generated by the same rule should co-vary. Oh, it was Chomsky's opinion, correct? Chomsky's opinion. But it wasn't everyone's opinion, right? Correct? So B, correct? Because C is naming as a fact an opinion that is actually attributed to one person, correct?
Yeah, but currently Chomsky's views are more popular in the field of linguistics.
How do you know that? Do you study linguistics?
I follow linguistics, some of my work.
What do you study?
I study computer science and natural language processing.
Oh, thank God. That's way more useful. Right? So you study NLP and computer science? Wow. Yeah. I also work in tech, by the way, in my day job. We should form like a mini group. Can we form a mini group, Santika, to talk about tech instead of the GRE verbal? I'm joking.
I'll try next time.
Okay. We'll have like a computer science and natural language processing session, okay? All right, Imral? Agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You brought up another interesting point. He said something like, did you guys hear him? He said that Chomsky's view is currently more popular. Did you hear him say that? Herwin Kurniawati? Did you hear him say that? Herwin Kurniawati? Herwin, you probably heard Imral say that Chomsky is more popular now, right? Now, that brings me up to another golden rule, because we have 3 sessions. I'm trying to like summarize and write parameters, right, that could help you answer questions. A golden rule is that we do not care about the actual world and we do not care about opinions. We only care to answer the questions through what? Not through what is popular today, not through what is accepted today, but through the passage itself and nothing else, okay? Yes? So even if you read a passage and you have some external knowledge about that particular topic that makes you think that the answer is a certain thing, do not be tricked. You are not being tested on what you know about a certain topic, and that is why it doesn't matter if you don't know about a certain topic. You should still be able to answer the questions because the questions are based on not your external knowledge, but the passage itself, okay? All right, guys? So like if you read something and you happen to know that, I don't know, like evolutionary biology actually works in a certain way, forget about your external knowledge, pay attention to the passage itself. Do we agree? The passage itself would be the t-shirt, okay, that you could make for yourself for the GRE verbal. It would have a t-shirt that says, well-modulated opinions. Uncertainty is good. lebay is bad. The passage itself, these are all t-shirts that you can sell for, talking about the GRE verbal. Okay, so a quick exercise before we turn to the next passage. Based on what we discussed so far, I would like you to tell me what is the right answer without reading a passage. Going back to our discussion earlier, where we said that anything that's lebay or absolutist or exaggerated or too sure of itself, or using terms like only, all, everyone, those are usually the wrong answer options. So we want to try an exercise where this is a hack, right, for the RC. We're going to find the right answer without even reading the passage. Can I ask someone to read the answer question? Sorry, I'm navigating away from it. Can I ask Dinda Ganisawati to read, Dinda Ganisawati Javada to read to find the right answer here?
Dinda is unmuted.
Hi, Dinda.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity again.
Thank you again as well.
I just have to read this one, Kristen.
Yeah, just read A, B, C, D, E, and let's, if we can.
The Monteverdi area may be home to toad or frog species that have not yet been noticed by researchers, and the Monteverdi Cloud Forest Preserve was not large enough to protect the golden toad. Only Costa Rican amphibians living near Monteverde have disappeared since the 1980s. If amphibians did not have permeable skin, then they could not act as biological harbingers. More than one-third of the world's amphibian species have become extinct.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm so sorry I accidentally flipped to the next slide, but I'm assuming that you did not see it, in which case we don't know what the passage is. Which one sounds to you after like 1 hour of us going through GRE verbal tones? Which one sounds, tonally speaking, like it could be the right answer? Let's use the group chat. Which one sounds like a right answer? A, B, C, D, E? You haven't read the passage, but from our tips around patterns of the GRE verbal. A. Everybody thinks A? Adinda, you think A, but with a question mark? Adinda Saraswati Rasadi? Are you guys saying A because you saw the next slide? Did you see the next slide? Okay, let's ask Adinda Saraswati Rasadi. Why A? Hello, Adinda Saraswati Rasadi. Oh, you're muted. Santika, could we unmute Adinda Saraswati Rasadi?
On it.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. I thought that it was A because it has like a degree of uncertainty that you mentioned was important in scientific writing.
Right. Because of the word may, correct?
Yeah.
What about C or D?
Well, C has the word only, which kind of isolates that group of Costa Rican amphibians.
Right.
And then D says that they could not act as biological harbingers. So like it's very like certain.
Right. If something, then something. It's like the if then, the if then structure sounds too certain, right? Okay, so we all agree, A, no debate. Everybody agrees, yes? Okay, I'm gonna assume you agree. By the way, there are like over 100 people in this session and only 20 are talking. Is that a high or low number? I think it's quite high. Okay. So next, we see what it will be, right? So the answer is, what is the answer? A. But let's look at the logic as to why it's A. Maybe sounds vague and non-committal. Because if something sounds vague and non-committal, it's hard to prove wrong. So it sounds good. B was not large enough. It sounds really definitive, right? So it's wrong. The word only in C, only Costa Rican amphibians, is a major deal breaker. So it's not going to be C. D is the if-then statement. This one is hypothetical. So like, consider the statement, if I didn't teach the GRE, I could not have written blog articles. Well, in that alternate universe, I might be writing other kinds of blog articles. So that hypothesis is also making a very definitive statement. So it's not correct. And E, more than 1/3 of the world's amphibian species have become extinct. It's also really, really specific, correct? So therefore, I think you did good. This is, by the way, only a hack. Don't take it too hard. But like, if you only have 7 minutes left, then maybe you can use this trick. But obviously, it's not going to be 100% applicable, right? But this is in case you run out of time. And Santika, whom we have to listen to, because she is the moderator here, is saying that we need to have more engagement. Do you guys agree? Do we need to have more engagement? I mean, Zoom sessions are kind of difficult to begin with, but okay, I'm hoping to see some names that I have not seen before. Maybe in order to get more people talking, Santika, are we supposed to do the Q&A? Should we do a little bit of Q&A before I go to the last passage? Or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, we usually receive questions along the way when, facilitator or speakers are presenting. But I think because you already engaged them so much and answering questions right away, we don't have a lot of questions by now. So like what we discussed before, you can continue with your presentation while still doing this. If anyone wants to ask question and everything. And if you guys are watching us from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you can ask questions through the comment box, and our social media team will pass it to me, and I will be able to ask Christine here. All right? So if you guys are in Zoom, you guys can simply use this chat box. It is very convenient. And, with this going on, I actually encourage more people to come into the Zoom instead of like other platforms, just because you can, directly engage with Christine here. Okay? All right, Christine. So far, no other questions on top of those that we had in Zoom, and you have answered all of them. So you can go back to your presentation.
Sure. If you have questions, by the way, guys, you can ask any questions not related to what we're talking about currently, related to the GRE verbal. Please use our group chat. So Aga Ridova, do you have any questions, Aga? Aga Ridova. Does Aga Ridova have any questions, Santika?
So I'm going to unmute Aga. I hope you're ready.
Do you have any questions, Aga? Hello.
I think so. Oh, there you go.
Not right now. Aga
All right.
doesn't have any questions. Sorry, still unmuted or still muted. Okay, excellent. Okay, so let's take a wider perspective for a second. I hope from today you have seen that there are certain parameters and certain prejudice that lend itself to academic writing, right? And in the GRE verbal, you see different excerpts of academic writing across different categories, and being able to hear the tone, being used to the sorts of arguments that people make in a very subtle way by kind of just weighing the opinions of other critics on a particular topic. I hope it gives you a new confidence when you look at a GRE passage. You'll be able to, instead of thinking, I don't know what they're talking about, you'll be able to attack it with more confidence. So in order to test if you are able to attack it with more confidence, let's again go through some pointers as to how you can map a passage, correct? So you can call it mapping a passage, or you can call it understand the story. You can call it understand the story behind a sentence or a paragraph, correct? But the main things that you do when you map a passage is you try to understand the key concept behind it. My own way of doing that is to take a long time understanding the opening. Once I understand and orient myself in the foreign jungle that is the passage, I'm able to read the second, third, fourth paragraph way more quickly, usually. The second thing is to see each paragraph as a bullet point of the argument. So when you're looking at a chunk of text, in your mind, you should be kind of like visually summarizing it. What is the summary? What's the main point? Where is the plot twist? What is the author's opinion? Think about it in bullet points in your mind. Try to visualize it. And then 3, what is the writer's perspective? In order to kind of isolate the writer's perspective, you need to be a close reader and pick it up from certain adjectives that they use, pick it up from the way that they distance themselves from opinions that they're quoting, or the way that they align themselves with the opinions that they're quoting. Sometimes they distance themselves, sometimes they align themselves. Like we had a disagreement with the previous passage, if you remember, where I thought that the last sentence about universalism was not the writer's opinion, but the opinion of the universalist that the writer is just quoting. So things like that we have to be able to hear well, right? Are they aligning or are they separating? And then number 4, identify points to ignore. Don't be intimidated. Know what to ignore. Remember our first example, one link between blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah is this thing, the notion of gesture. So both the details of what is being linked between A and B, they don't matter. Just get the story of the sentence. Sorry, what do you mean by how long do you spend on the GRE? So we have some questions, so maybe we can actually take the questions first, right? Linda's question. This is the first time for me to learn about the GRE and it's amazingly exhausted. How did you do it? Where do you start it? Or is there any kind of a trick? Oh my God, Dinda, so I have not helped you. Instead of making you feel more confident, I made you feel like it was exhausting. This is terrible. Can we unmute Dinda?
All right.
Yeah. Hello, Dinda.
Unmuted.
Hi.
Christian. Amazing, exhausted in a positive way. So I'm comfortable to learning about GRE, but in the same time, I feel exhausted because this is the first time and it's so challenging for me.
It's not challenging. It's because it's only the first session. You will be like an expert within like, I think, maybe 6 weeks would be a good amount of time to spend on prepping for the GRE verbal.
Pardon me?
I think I was just trying to answer a different question that asked how long it takes to prepare. I would say about 6 weeks would be a good time period if you had 6 weeks to kind of familiarize yourself with the GRE.
Oh, okay. I will try to join the 6 weeks. Thank you so much.
But why is it exhausting? Can you describe more like what aspects of it is particularly exhausting?
Maybe because of this is the first time for me to read the sentences, and honestly, I'm like off vocabulary too, so it needs more time to thinking about the meaning. But overall, you did explanation with very good. It's well received to understand.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. Then I think that was partly the point that I was trying to make, Dinda, that we shouldn't get too stuck on the actual vocabulary or concepts and just learn basic skills like how to break down a passage that's not familiar into a passage that is telling a certain story from a certain perspective that we can understand, even if we don't know what expressivist paintings, what it means, we would still be able to get the gist of the passage. That was what I was trying to say. But I think it will get easier. I think somebody is asking about the actual breakdown, right? Actual breakdown. Did somebody ask this question? So the breakdown is obviously divided into the quant section and the verbal section, out of which I'm only doing the verbal section. What is a good score? The score is between 130 to 170. From years of teaching this, mostly my students have tried to aim for something like 155 out of 170. 150 to 155 out of 170 is a decent score when you are trying to get into like petroleum engineering, computer science programs, and things like that. But does anyone have any other opinions there as to like what's a good score for verbal? It's ranged between 130 to 170, and I'm saying that anything between 150 to 155 is good. But do you have any other opinions as to prep resources? Great question, Andida. I really love this book. I have used a lot, and this one I think is so great for verbal, and I think probably also not bad for quant. The 5 pounds book of GRE practice problems. So a free PDF of it actually exists. You can find it online by searching Manhattan Prep 5-pound book of GRE practice problems PDF. But I've also isolated it in this G drive that I will share with Santika, and then she can share with everyone. Is that okay, Santika?
Yeah.
Like, can you just share that drive link with
Sure.
the PDF? How I would like to conduct this among those of you who are engaged and asking questions is that you should take a look at this book. You should do whatever questions that you find in this book. And then next week, for our second session of verbal, 3 or 4 of you should bring up questions where the answers at the back of the book still don't make sense to you. Do you know what I mean? So then we can discuss that. Does it make sense? Like if you will download the PDF of this book that Santika will share, do some practice questions, come back next week, and then we can go through the questions that gave you some trouble. In terms of the breakdown, I had to look on this, but the breakdown is you will have a majority of questions in reading comprehension. So like you have 3 sections, right? Sentence completion, sentence equivalence, and reading comprehension, but half the questions out of the 3 sections will be from the reading comprehension, which is why we're spending time on it. Obviously, you also have an analytical writing section that we will speak about in our last session. Do we have any other questions? Did I answer everything? Most favorable scores will be in an 80th percentile. Yeah. Thank God, American standards are very low, guys, so don't worry. You will do well against Americans. I'm so sorry, Santika. I should not have made that comment. This is sponsored by the US State Department.
All right, that's fine.
It's a joke, guys. But have I answered everything? Are there specific prep courses? I answered that. How is it scored? Somebody already gave the link to that. Sometimes I got distracted by jargon and fancy words instead of focusing on what these words are trying to inform me. Zakiatul, that's what I was saying. Map the passage. Think about what is the subject, what is the subject in that passage, and try to take away the fancy details and the fancy words and just focus on who is doing what to a particular object, correct? Like, for instance, Chomsky is proposing a universal theory of language. That is the summary of that entire thing that we read. We have to go through in deeper details, I think next week, the skill of breaking down a passage into simpler elements. By the way, Santika, it's not true that they don't have Q&A. There are a lot of questions now.
Yeah, after I mentioned that we have Q&A, everybody started, asking questions. And this is especially true when we are running out of time. So, correct me if I'm wrong, we received so many questions after we talk about the Q&A. So yeah, I'm going to check if we have other questions from other platform just to make sure we don't miss anything. Let me check. I don't think we have from other platform. Yep, none from other platforms. So we can have all the time here in Zoom because we have so many questions here in Zoom.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm going to answer one question from Iran here in Zoom. She asked if we are going to have like a prep course. So this introduction to the GRE right now, 6 session, is kind of like GRE lessons, but more compressed. Like we had 12 sessions in 2020, but I think it was in person. So I think making it online, we decided to cut it shorter so that people can give their best focus for this, type of lessons because it's so, what do I call this? It's very constant. You need a lot of concentration to do this. So, Iran, we do this introduction to the GRE as like the GRE lessons. Dan kita bilangnya introduction karena dipendekin, so you will get like lessons but not like very elaborated one. If you need the very elaborated one, which is back in 2020, after we finish with this introduction, 6 sessions of these introductions, you need more, but it was in 2020 and you don't mind, it was in the past. I can share the video link recording if you want to. Okay, but I just want to remind everyone, if you need or you want to try to get a free GRE test voucher through this introduction to the GRE, you still need to attend and learn this time. All right, so yeah, that's that from me, Christine. If you want to add on this 3 sessions instead of like 6 in the past, you can let everyone know like what will be different this time.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, Santika. I actually think that even in 3 sessions, you can learn a lot. Obviously, with any prep courses, even if you're doing like an expensive Kaplan or Princeton review course, a lot of the things that are happening in terms of your learning will happen outside the course, right? It will happen when you apply concepts that you learn about in your own time, practicing, doing practice tasks, and so on. I think actually doing something like 2 to 4 practice tasks, you can find them anywhere. We live in the age of like free resources online. Do 2 to 4 complete practice tasks, and you will get a sense of pitfalls, right? Like you will see certain questions where you are so sure you got the right answer and it's still not the right answer. A good book like The Manhattan Prep actually breaks down why the wrong answers are wrong. After you do 2 to 4 practice tests, I think you would have a better grasp of like the way you are asked to think in order to answer the questions. So that would be my recommendation. Give it 6 weeks. Make some flashcards of the high recurring GRE vocabulary, do 2 to 4 practice tests, and try to recognize basic patterns of how you're expected to answer questions. But, I'm not done, Santika. That was like a break. Can we have another 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. 5 to 10 minutes, okay?
Yeah.
So anyway, since we talked about that, can we try like another one, which is the one that we had started out talking about? We had excerpted a sentence from this passage. So Irene, Lucifera, if I can sort of put you on the spot here and ask you to read this entire passage, that will be great. And while Irene is reading, let's try to spot things like if there is a plot twist question, because like any passage is usually a general description and then like the intervention of an opinion that could be like a controversial but not really controversial, like a explicit opinion on the subject after a general introduction, right? I call that a plot twist. Where does it happen? What is the subject of the passage? What are the incidental details that we should forget about? If you were going to summarize the passage into some bullet points, what would they be? What are some places you can find the opinions of the writer? So while Irene is reading this. Irene Lucifera. It'll be great if we can try to break it down. Okay, Irene, if I can ask you.
Irene, Christine, you meant to unmute Irene Lucifera, right?
Yeah, that'll
Okay.
be great. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay. So I have to read the whole passage,
Yes,
Christine.
please.
Okay.
Thank you.
From assemblage of found objects to bizarre video installations and digital interactive experiments, much of contemporary art has been criticized as cold, unapproachable, impersonal, and emotionless. One link between the immediately appealing, expressive paintings that are often the most popular museum attractions and the brainy constructivist school of art pioneered in the early 20th century is the notion of gesture as an expressive tool. Marx the Chauffeur's Iroquois, 1983 until 1999, is composed of several industrial-sized I-beams. The materials are so heavy and large the artists use cranes and other construction tools to manipulate and connect the beams, all of which have been painted a bright red orange. The result is an intruding work of almost architectural dimensions that one can immediately sense is terribly heavy and somewhat precarious, yet stable and balanced. As one contemplates Iroquois working in and around its structure, making away to see it from a distance, the linear forms became considerably more complex than one might presume. The tangled steel was obviously constructed with great care, yet each piece seems to threaten the viewer with its weight and size. Jutting out away from the central nexus, tearing the entire form to topple over. At the same time, the piece seems to exude stability, balance, even serenity. Iroquois resonates with an energy born not of the physical quality of the sculpture, which is quite passive and stable, but rather of gestural quality of forms. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irene. That last word is form. So
Yes.
yeah, please stay around. Don't mute yourself yet. If we think about the first sentence, does it already help us? If we take a long time to read the first sentence of this passage, does it help us orient ourselves? The first sentence is from assemblages of found objects to bizarre video installations and digital interactive experiments. Much of contemporary art has been criticized as cold, unapproachable, impersonal, and emotionless. So if you were to summarize that first sentence, can you give me a simpler version? What is the first sentence saying? Irene, what is the first sentence saying? Can you give me a summary?
Yes, wait, Christine.
Yeah. Or anyone else, please feel free to give a summary as well by typing in Zoom of the first sentence. Great. Adinda offered, most contemporary art are thought of as impersonal. Do you agree with Adinda, Irene, that most contemporary art are thought of as impersonal? Yes, correct. One.
Much.
Sorry.
Yes. Much of contemporary art is not most. Is that the same words, most and much?
Yeah, same. Most or much of.
Okay.
Yep, correct. Has been criticized as bad, impersonal, or they have been criticized. Great. Now that you know the first sentence is saying that most contemporary art has been criticized, haven't you found yourself in a jungle and you have seen a Starbucks, correct? Like you have oriented yourself. At first, you look at it and you're intimidated. What are bizarre video installations? What are digital interactive experiments? It doesn't matter if you don't know those words. Summarize the first couple of sentences and you will know where you're at, correct? So if we start with the premise that most contemporary art has been criticized as impersonal, then what is the next part of the story? What's the next part of the story? However, there's going to be a however, right? Because the story is like, hey, people usually say that this type of art sucks, and then there is a however. What is the however? What is the thing that saves contemporary art? Anybody? Irene, Wan Barmawi, Muhammad Razak. Because his summary is so funny, it just says contemporary arts are bad. Wan Barmawi, maybe you can tell me, like, what happens after that? What's the next part of the story after contemporary? Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hello. Yeah. Hello.
Not sure if one is ready. Should we call someone else, Christine?
Yeah. What about Ruliawan di Wasito?
Ruliawan, are you ready? Here you go.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I thought the plot is about the notion of gesture as an expressive tool.
Great.
Because it's like a plot twist. Because the previous sentence is taught us about the criticize, and the next sentence is taught us more about the kindness.
Oh, excellent. Excellent, Ruliawan. So we start with the premise that contemporary art is mostly seen as impersonal, correct? And then the next part of the story is, but you know what? There is this thing called gesture, correct? As an expressive tool. Then what happens next is a huge discussion of Marc de Souvero, Iroquois, right? That's like the next thing that happens. And he says blah, blah, blah about it. Now, here is a more challenging question for you, Ruliawan, if you can say for a second. Can you summarize just 2 points that he's making about Marc de Souvero? Just 2 points. What is point 1? So, lines 6 to 15, all about Marc de Souvero. Can you give me a couple of points? Or anyone else, summarize 2 points made about Marc de Souvero's Iroquois installation, right? Bye-bye, Irene. Thank you so much for helping me read, and see you next week. So I'm just saying bye to Irene, she's leaving. Ruliawan, what do you think? What are a couple of points that can be made about Marc de Souvero? Is Ruliawan still unmuted?
Yes, I think on the latest sentence, yang ironies resonates with an energy born not of the physical quality of the sculptor. I think it's the point.
Nice. So the first one is that it has energy, right? That's the first summary, correct? First bullet point about Marc de Souvero. What's the second one?
The second one, I guess, is the rather of the gestural quality of the forms, I guess.
Great. Wonderful. So the first point is, sorry, what was the first one again? You read which phrase to make the point about the first one? The first point is what? The second point is gestural quality. The first point is energy, is it?
Yeah, resonates with an energy. Yes, the energy is the first point.
Okay, excellent. So it's line 15 to 16. It resonates with an energy that is not from the physical quality of the structure, correct? Oh, that's actually 1 point, but from the gestural quality. I think the other thing I would say is like balance and unbalance. It seems stable and yet it also seems precarious, correct? That's the other thing I remember it saying about Marc de Souvero. So I know.
Oh, yeah. Ninth line, yeah.
Yeah, ninth line. Stable. Seems very, very heavy, yet also stable, correct?
Correct.
And then line 11. It seems very simple, but yet it's very complex, correct? Yep. And then it seems constructed with great care, yet each piece also seems to be dangerous. It threatens the viewer. So at first it seems very complex, but when you break it down, they're just making a series of bullet points about an artist's work, right? So they're talking about about contemporary art being cold. And then they're saying, but there's this guy called Mark Di Suvero, and his stuff isn't cold because it's interesting. They seem heavy and sort of precarious, but yet also stable. They seem constructed with great care, yet also dangerous. They seem like they have energy that is not just from the physical, but from blah, blah, blah. So you can break down things that seem very difficult upon first read, right? The questions to the passage for these sets of questions, they're kind of difficult. So before we go, can we attack them? This is also another type of question. This is another question type, right, where you are picking more than one for 49. For 48, it's just the same thing. Consider each of the answer choices indicate all that apply. So it could be 1, 2, and 3. It could be just 1. It could be 1 and 2, and so on. 48. Which of the following can be inferred from the passage? So let's take a shot at this. The faster we can answer this, the faster we can have lunch, etc. And so which of the following can be inferred from the passage? Is the first thing true? Thank you so much, by the way, Rulia One. And I'm gonna maybe call on someone we haven't called on yet. Gifari Aulia. Gifari Aulia?
Aulia.
Gifari Aulia.
Gifari, I hope you're ready. Hello.
Hi. Gifari, we have 3 minutes now, so you have to answer 48 and 49 in 3 minutes.
Sorry, mute.
I can hear you. Hello?
Hello. Oh, okay. So,
We can hear you.
thank you, Christine and Kak Santika. So, my opinion for the question 48 is, I think the first sentence, some of the most popular museum attractions are contemporary art installations.
It's false. It's not true. Because remember, a bunch of people had said that the summary is contemporary art is bad and impersonal, correct? So they're not the most popular, correct?
I see.
Yeah, so not one. What about 2? Expressive paintings. What are expressive paintings? Are they in contrast to contemporary art? Yes. So on the one side, if we look at this sentence, one link between the appealing expressive paintings and the brainy constructivist school of art, which is contemporary art. So expressive paintings would be popular, correct? Bye, heroine. Goodbye, heroine. So expressive paintings are not brainy. Brainy refers to the other category of paintings or of art, correct? So 1 and 2 are wrong. Just sorry. Sorry, Gifari, I'm sort of rushing you because we, I guess, have like 2 minutes. But what about 49? Since you're already unmuted, I think, can we try to do 49 together, Gifari? Which of the following does the author assert about the Iroquois? Sorry, Gifari, you have like the most difficult question. You think A. Paradoxically, it appears to be both stable and unstable. Correct. Excellent. Agree. What about B? I think B could be a question to Ruliawan. Is B correct, Ruliawan? Ruliawan Ediwasito, the guy who was talking before Gifari. Ruliawan, are you still around? Ruliawan? Yes. So it's A and B, correct? What about the third one? Some interpret it as simpler than it really is. Is that a true statement? Putri, can we unmute Putri Sukma? Santika? Some interpret it to be simpler than it really is. Can we
Putri.
Hello? Hello, Putri. Is the third one correct? Some interpret it as simpler than it really is?
I don't think so because it's very complicated.
It's very complicated, which means that some people don't understand it's complicated, so they think it's simpler than it is, right? Wait a second. If we, sorry. Okay, here's line 10, line 9 to 10, yeah? As one contemplates Iroquois walking in and around its structure, backing away to see it from a distance, the linear forms become considerably more complex than one might presume. Become considerably more complex than one might presume. So is it correct that some interpret it as simpler than it really is? It is correct, yes?
It's very confusing.
It's not confusing because in the sentence they were saying that it's more complex than one presumes, correct? Do you see?
Yes.
Right. So if something is more complex than one might presume, that means that it's not as simple as you think, correct?
Yes, it is.
Exactly. So the answer is all three options, correct? 1, 2, and 3 are all true, correct?
Yes.
Cool. Quite simple, right? Seems a little bit difficult, but once we break down the passage through mapping the passage and close reading, it gets easier. I don't know. We will try with the more difficult passages next week, I guess. Thank you so much, Putri. You're the last one.
Thank you so much, Christine.
Thank you so much. Okay, Santika, I think that was our 3 minutes, right?
Right. So I see that you still have like a few slides left on after this. Do you want to go over them quickly?
No, it's fine. I think I just had more slides than we had time for. I was measuring for, yeah.
Okay.
No problem.
All right. Thank you so much, Christine, and everyone. I look forward to see you again, coming back to learn from Christine next week. Same day, same time. If you haven't registered, go to the atamerica.or.id website and find the event page and register for it. I hope that helps, and looking forward to see all of you again next week.
It was
Back
so
to
fun.
Aninda.
They talk so much. They talk so much, right, Santika, overall?
Yes.
I feel like I know you even though I don't see your face.
Thank you, Christine. See you next week.
See you. Bye.
Back to Aninda. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kak Christine and Kak Salim, for the insightful session. As always, it's been great having you with us. All right, early in this event, we asked the question of the day. The question was, true or false, machine learning and AI are having a growing impact in optimizing student services and support during the pandemic? And the answer is true. Like commercial businesses, many universities are beginning to deploy blended and fully AI-based chatbots to support students and answer questions, integrating with their learning management systems, enabling student service personnel with data, or using pattern recognition to help students navigate key admissions, enrollment, and course deadlines. Shout out to Tian Mai from Zoom for answering correctly. Thank you to everyone who has participated to our question of the day. Don't forget to tune in next time and catch a chance to get a live shout out from us. Now, you may be wondering, how can I develop an awesome idea with a place like this? Very easy. You can simply go to our website at www.atamerica.or.id, select create a program, and go collaborate with us. All the event's proposals will be reviewed and your event might be featured here soon. While you're there, you can subscribe to our membership to get our weekly event updates. Well, it's been fun with you all, but it's the end of our event. You can follow our social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ATAmerica. You can get fun content and so much more. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us. Again, my name is Aninda and happy weekend, everyone.